Yeah. Well, good morning. It is great to be in Laredo. It is great to be here with so many friends as we're gathered at the site of one of the most important ports for commerce in the world. Jobs and prosperity. You know, we're at a time when there are lots of partisan disagreements in our country. But one thing that should bring us together is the importance of jobs and economic growth. South Texas is an incredible place of vibrant opportunity. And the jobs in South Texas are driven powerfully by the trade and commerce that goes back and forth across this bridge and across the other bridges along the Rio Grande. Unfortunately, for the past 2.5 years, we have seen the current administration, the Biden administration, putting bureaucratic roadblocks in the way of building new bridges and of expanding existing bridges. The way it works to build an international bridge across the Rio Grande is under federal law, you have to get a federal presidential permit to build or expand a bridge. The government previously used to approve those permits conditional on the completion of the environmental review, what's called the NEPA review. That enabled the project to go forward, to get financing, and to be built. Unfortunately, the Biden administration turned that upside down. They implemented a new policy where they would not grant any presidential permits to new bridges or expanding bridges until after all of the environmental review was complete. The effect of that bureaucratic roadblock was to delay all of these bridge projects enormously by as much as 2, 3, 4 years. Not only that, by denying the presidential permit at the outset, it made it harder for the sponsors of the bridges to secure financing to move forward with the projects. The World Trade Bridge here, there's a proposal to expand it, to add 2 new lanes, and to build 8 brand new lanes, a total of 10 new lanes of commerce running north and south. That has enormous benefits for the city of Laredo and for all of Texas. We're here today because we have cause to celebrate. I've been working hand in hand with my friend Congressman Henry Cuellar, and we have seen complete bipartisan unanimity among the South Texas congressional delegation. Henry and I have worked together along with my colleague John Cornyn, along with Vicente Gonzalez, a Democrat, along with Monica de la Cruz, a Republican, along with Tony Gonzalez, a Republican. All of us standing together have united to pressure the Biden administration to stop delaying these bridges. And in the last week, we won big bipartisan victories for South Texas. In the past week, Henry on the House introduced appropriations language to speedline the development of these new bridges. In the Senate, I introduced legislation in the Senate Foreign Relations Committee to speed up, to accelerate 4 new bridges adopted. It was included on the State Authorization Act, and that legislation in turn was attached to the National Defense Authorization Act, which is right now today pending on the Senate floor. Tomorrow I'll fly back to Washington, D.C., and I hope and expect we will vote that legislation off of the floor in the coming days and that President Biden will sign it into law. Simultaneously, Henry on the House is moving the appropriations language so that the two approaches together are very much a belt and suspenders approach to get these bridges built. The bridges we're talking about are bridges supported by the city of Laredo, supported by Webb County, supported by Cameron County down in Brownsville, supported by Maverick County and Eagle Pass, new bridges and expanding existing bridges. And because of these bipartisan victories, victories that were supported by the men and women gathered here, the business leaders throughout the valley, throughout South Texas, Democrats and Republicans who stood together and said, trade is good, commerce is good, jobs are good. Because of the strong voice of South Texas, we've been able to earn these victories, and these victories we need to keep pressing. They're not yet over the finish line. The legislation that's pending needs to pass the Senate, it needs to pass the House, it needs to be signed by the President. And that's the purpose of this press conference, to continue to have the bipartisan, strong press, because the message that the Biden administration needs to hear, the message that everyone needs to hear, is build these damn bridges. Expand these bridges, because building and expanding these bridges is more jobs in South Texas. It's higher wages in South Texas. It's more opportunity in South Texas. And I'll point out also, it is good not just for South Texas, but for the entire state of Texas and for the entire country. It is good for national security, as we are nearshoring and bringing more and more manufacturing back from China. Much of it is coming to Mexico south of the border, and the enormous trade and commerce is good for making us less dependent on China. Building and expanding these bridges is good for Texas farmers, it's good for Texas ranchers, it's good for Texas manufacturers, it's good for Texas small businesses, and I'll tell you what it's also good for. It's good for the environment. Right now, you can see on any given day over 10,000 18-wheelers sitting, waiting to cross this bridge. Sometimes sitting 2, 3, 4 hours, spewing pollution into the air while the trucks are sitting there in a needless traffic jam. By expanding this bridge, by creating more lanes for commerce, the trucks can move more quickly, the goods can get to the customers faster, which lowers prices for consumers, and they pollute a whole lot less when they don't sit in a parking lot for hours waiting on the traffic jam. This is a win-win. It is a bipartisan win for South Texas, and we're proud to stand here united. My friend and colleague, Congressman Henry Cuellar.
Thank you, Senator. Gonzalez, you got Monica de la Cruz, you got Tony Gonzalez, all of us working together in a bipartisan way to make sure we get this done. Why are we here today? We're here to get the fight, get a victory over bureaucracy. It's a fight over bureaucracy. It's going to be a victory over bureaucracy. That is how we do presidential permits that we see here, why it's so important that we get this done. It's going to get done. The senator has added language on the NDAA, which is one bill that has to pass at the end of the year. It's one of those must-pass pieces of legislation. I've added language on the appropriations bill, which is, again, another must-pass legislation. So one way or the other, at the end of the year, this will get done. And again, Senator, I want to thank you for what you've done on that NDAA. Now, we're here because trade is important. Every year, or just last year, we saw more than $863 billion of trade between the U.S. and